It was 6:14 on a rainy Thursday morning when my phone lit up with a text message that made my stomach drop. "Will come if she actually dies." I read it 3 times, then a fourth. The message was from my parents. And the she they were talking about was my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter Emma. At that moment, she was lying in a hospital bed connected to monitors after doctors had found a dangerous infection that had spread faster than anyone expected. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I looked through the glass window into her room. She was asleep, tiny, pale, fighting. And somehow my parents had found a way to make that moment about themselves. I wish I could say I was surprised. But looking back now, that was the moment everything started. My parents had never cared much about me, at least not in the way parents are supposed to. Growing up, I was always the backup child, the invisible one. My younger brother Ryan was the star. Ryan got praise, Ryan got support, Ryan got second chances. I got criticism. When Ryan crashed dad's truck at 17, my parents called it a mistake. When I got a B in chemistry, they called me lazy. When Ryan dropped out of college, they said he was finding himself. When I earned a scholarship, they asked why it wasn't a full scholarship. Nothing I ever did was enough. I spent years trying to earn their approval, years. Then Emma was born. And everything changed. For the first time in my life, someone looked at me like I mattered, like I was enough. Emma became my entire world. I promised myself she would never grow up feeling the way I did. I thought becoming grandparents might soften my parents. I was wrong. At birthdays, they arrived late. At school events, they made excuses. When Emma won a writing contest in third grade, my mother spent the entire dinner talking about Ryan's new boat. Emma noticed. Kids always notice. One night when she was 7, she asked me something that broke my heart. "Dad, do Grandma and Grandpa not like me?" I nearly cried right there. I told her they loved her, but even as the words left my mouth, I hated myself for saying them, because deep down I wasn't sure it was true. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. 3 days before that text message, Emma had complained about stomach pain. At first, we thought it was a virus. Then came the fever, then the vomiting, then the emergency room. Everything happened so fast. Doctors rushed tests, nurses moved in and out constantly. Medical words filled every conversation. My wife, Sarah, and I barely slept. The second night, one doctor pulled us aside. His expression told me everything before he spoke. "We're concerned." Those 2 words hit harder than anything. For 72 hours, we lived inside that hospital. Friends came, neighbors checked in, coworkers sent food, even people we barely knew reached out, but my parents, nothing. No calls, no visits, no concern. Then Sarah suggested we send one final message. Maybe they didn't understand how serious things were. Maybe they thought Emma would be fine, maybe. So I texted them. "Emma's condition has worsened. Doctors are very worried. If you want to see her, now would be the time." An hour later came the reply, "Will come if she actually dies." I stared at those words until my vision blurred. Sarah read them and burst into tears. I didn't cry, I couldn't. Something inside me simply went numb, the kind of numbness that comes when disappointment becomes expected. The next day, Emma woke up weak but alert. She smiled when she saw me. Then she noticed my phone sitting beside me. "Dad?" "Yeah, sweetheart?" "Did Grandma text back?" I froze. Children always know more than adults think. I forced a smile. "Don't worry about that." But she kept looking at me. Then she said something I'll never forget. "It's okay if they don't come." The way she said it shattered me. Not angry, not sad, just accepting. As if she'd already learned that some people choose not to love you. No child should learn that lesson at 8 years old. But what happened next shocked me. Later that evening, I walked back into Emma's room and found her holding Sarah's phone. She quickly locked the screen. "What are you doing?" I asked. She smiled. "Nothing." Normally, I would have pressed further, but she seemed happier than she'd been in days, so I let it go. Over the next week, something incredible happened. Emma started improving, the infection responded to treatment, doctors became optimistic. The fear that had consumed our lives slowly began to fade. Eventually, she came home. The entire neighborhood celebrated. People dropped off cards. Teachers visited. Friends brought gifts. Emma smiled more than she had in weeks. Meanwhile, my parents remained completely silent. No apology, no visit, nothing. Then life moved on, or at least I thought it had. About 6 weeks later, my mother called, not to ask about Emma, not to apologize. She wanted money. Ryan had gotten himself into trouble again, a failed business, unpaid debts, bad decisions. Apparently, they needed $15,000 immediately. I actually laughed. My mother didn't appreciate it. Family helps family, she snapped. I felt years of resentment boiling to the surface. Really? I asked. Of course. I took a deep breath. Then I repeated their text message word for word. Silence for several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she hung up. That should have been the end, but I had no idea Emma had been quietly planning something. And what she planned would expose my parents in a way nobody expected. A few days later, Emma asked if she could use my laptop. She was working on a school project. At least that's what she told me. I didn't think twice about it. An hour later, she handed it back. Everything seemed normal. Months passed. Christmas came. My parents spent it with Ryan, Agan. Emma received a generic gift card in the mail. No phone call, no card, no message. Just a gift card. I expected her to be upset. Instead, she seemed strangely calm, almost determined. Then something happened that changed everything. In March, Emma's elementary school announced a community storytelling event. Students would create short videos about people who influenced their lives, dachshunds, grandparents, teachers, anyone. Families were invited. The event would be streamed online and shown during a school fundraiser. Emma immediately signed up. I thought nothing of it. She loved creative projects. For weeks, she worked on her video. Whenever I offered help, she'd smile and say she had it under control. The night before the event, she asked me a question. Dad, if someone hurts your feelings but never says sorry, what does that mean? I looked at her carefully. It means they're choosing not to take responsibility. She nodded, then she asked another question. Can people learn from consequences? I laughed softly. Sometimes, she smiled, looking back now. I wish I had known what was coming next. The fundraiser arrived on a Saturday evening. The school auditorium was packed. Parents filled every seat. Teachers stood along the walls. Students were excited, proud, nervous. The principal introduced each video one at a time. Most were exactly what you'd expect. Cute stories, funny memories, heartwarming moments. Then Emma's turn came. She walked onto the stage holding the microphone. The room immediately quieted. She looked nervous, but determined. I made a video about family, she said. The screen behind her lit up, photos appeared. Pictures of birthdays, school events, holiday gatherings, family vacations. Then Emma began narrating. My teacher said family means people who show up when you need them. Everyone smiled. It seemed sweet. Normal. Then the next slide appeared. Hospital photos. Photos from the week she was sick. The room grew silent. My heart started racing. I hadn't known she had those pictures. Emma continued. When I got really sick, lots of people came to see me. Pictures flashed across the screen. Teachers, friends, neighbors, doctors, nurses. Then another slide appeared. A blank space, 2 empty chairs. Underneath it were the words, people who didn't come. I sat frozen. The room was completely silent. Emma looked directly into the audience. Then she said something nobody was prepared for. At first, I thought Grandma and Grandpa were busy. A few uncomfortable laughs echoed through the room, then she continued. But later I learned they got a message saying I might die. The auditorium became still. I felt Sarah grab my hand. Then Emma said the words that changed everything. And they answered with a text. The screen went black. for 3 seconds, then a screenshot appeared. A screenshot none of us knew existed, one that Emma had secretly saved months earlier, one that showed my parents' exact message. "Will come if she actually dies." The entire room gasped. And that wasn't even the worst part, because the next video clip that appeared would expose a secret my parents had spent years hiding. And when it finished playing, their reputation would never recover. The second that screenshot appeared on the giant screen, the entire auditorium seemed to stop breathing. I heard gasps, whisps. Someone near the back actually said, "Oh my God." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I turned toward Sarah. She looked just as shocked as I was. Neither of us had known Emma had saved that message. Neither of us had known she planned to show it. But the worst part was realizing this wasn't a mistake. Emma had done it intentionally, and she wasn't finished. The screenshot faded. For a moment, the screen went dark. Emma stood quietly at center stage. Then another video started playing. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was footage from a birthday party, one of Emma's birthdays. The camera shook slightly as if a child had recorded it. Then I realized what it was. Years ago, I had given Emma an old tablet. Apparently, she had spent years recording little moments without anyone paying attention. Birthday parties, family gatherings, holiday dinners, Sybil memories. The footage continued. On the screen, 7-year-old Emma ran excitedly toward my parents, holding a school certificate. "Grandma! Grandpa!" "Look." My mother barely glanced at it. "That's nice, sweetheart." Then she immediately turned back to Ryan. The audience watched silently. Another clip appeared. Emma standing beside a soccer field, looking into the crowd, matching waiting. The game ended. Every parent walked toward their child. Everyone except my parents. The camera zoomed in on Emma's face. The disappointment was impossible to miss. Another clip, Christmas morning. Emma opening gifts, then quietly asking where Grandma and Grandpa were. No answer. The room had become painfully silent. I could see parents wiping tears from their eyes. Teachers looked uncomfortable. Nobody expected a school fundraiser to turn into this. But Emma wasn't trying to humiliate anyone. That was the part that hit hardest. She wasn't angry. She was simply showing the truth. And truth is often more powerful than revenge. I thought that was the biggest surprise. I was wrong. The next clip changed everything. The footage showed my parents sitting at a family barbecue. They didn't know they were being recorded. The audio was clear, too clear. My mother laughed and said something that made my stomach drop. "Ryan's children will always matter more. Emma isn't really part of our side of the family anyway." The audience gasped again. I felt sick. I had never heard that recording before. Neither had Sarah. My father nodded in agreement. Then he added something even worse. "Everything we're leaving behind goes to Ryan eventually. That's how it should be." The video froze. The room exploded into whispers. Suddenly, years of behavior made sense. The favoritism, the neglect, the constant rejection. It had never been accidental. It had been intentional the entire time. Looking back now, that was the moment the illusion finally died. The video continued. This time, Emma appeared on screen. Not a younger version, a recent recording. She sat in her bedroom, holding a stuffed rabbit she'd owned since she was 3. She looked directly into the camera. I used to think something was wrong with me. The room became silent again. I thought maybe I wasn't smart enough. She paused. Or funny enough. Another pause. Or lovable enough. My chest tightened. Sarah squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Emma continued. "But then I got sick." Her voice trembled slightly. "And when I got sick, lots of people came." Photos appeared again. Friends, teachers, neighbors, nurses, the people who had shown up then. I learned something. She smiled softly. The people who love you don't wait until you're dead." A few people in the audience openly cried, including me. For months, I had carried anger toward my parents. But hearing my daughter say those words made me realize something. This wasn't about them anymore. This was about her finally understanding her worth. And that changed everything. The video wasn't over. Emma continued, I wanted to make this project because sometimes grown-ups think children don't notice things. A few nervous laughs echoed through the room. But we do notice. Another pause. We notice who shows up. The audience remains silent. We notice who remembers. Another pause. We notice who cares. Then she smiled, and we notice who doesn't. The screen faded to black. For several seconds, nobody moved, nobody spoke. Then the entire auditorium stood up, a standing ovation, louder than anything I had ever heard. People clapped, teachers cried, parents hugged their children. Emma looked stunned. She hadn't expected that reaction, neither had I. But what happened next shocked me. The fundraiser had been live streamed, and someone had recorded it. Within 24 hours, clips from Emma's presentation spread across social media. Thousands of people shared it, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. People connected with it because it wasn't about a child attacking her grandparents. It was about a child explaining what neglect feels like. The story spread everywhere. Local news picked it up. Community pages shared it. Tenkrants discussed it online. Teachers used it in conversations about family relationships. And eventually, my parents saw it. I found out 3 days later. My phone started ringing nonstop. First my mother, then my father, then Ryan, then relatives I hadn't heard from in years. I ignored every call, every single one. Eventually, my mother left a voicemail. She was furious, not sorry, not ashamed. Furious. How dare you let her do that? I listened twice. There wasn't a single apology in the entire message, not one, only complaints about how embarrassed they felt. That told me everything. A week later, things got worse for them, much worse. One of my father's longtime business partners saw the video, then another, then another. People began asking questions, not about the presentation, about the recordings, especially the part where my father discussed family inheritance, because there was something nobody outside the family knew. My father had spent years promising different people different things, including Ryan, including other relatives, including business associates. His comments created a wave of scrutiny he wasn't prepared for, and scrutiny has a funny way of uncovering secrets. I never expected those words to change my life. A few weeks later, I received a call from my aunt. She sounded nervous. There's something you should know. What she told me left me speechless. Years earlier, my grandmother had created a trust, one specifically intended for all grandchildren, not just Ryan's future children, all grandchildren, including Emma. But somehow that trust had been quietly modified after my grandmother died. The changes benefited Ryan almost exclusively. The more attorneys investigated, the stranger things became. Documents didn't match. Signatures raised questions. Records disappeared. Eventually, legal experts became involved. Then everything unraveled. My father hadn't technically forged anything, but he had used his position as executor to manipulate information and pressure elderly relatives into approving changes they barely understood. The result? The trust was challenged successfully. The original intentions were restored. Emma's future was protected. Ryan lost the financial advantage he'd counted on for years. My parents were furious, but for the first time, nobody was listening to them. Their credibility was gone. The community knew. The family knew. The truth had finally caught up with them. I thought that would be enough, but karma wasn't finished. About 6 months later, my father suffered a serious financial setback. Several business relationships ended. People simply didn't trust him anymore. Not because of one video, because the video made people look closer, and they didn't like what they found. Meanwhile, something beautiful happened. The people who truly loved Emma stepped forward. More than ever before. Teachers stayed connected. Neighbors became family. Friends became lifelong supporters. Birthdays became bigger. holidays became warmer. The empty space my parents left behind slowly filled with people who genuinely cared. Then one evening, nearly a year later, my mother showed up at our house, unannounced. I opened the door. She looked older, smaller somehow. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she asked if she could see Emma. I studied her face. For the first time, I didn't see anger. I saw regret, real regret. Not because she got caught, because she finally understood what she'd lost. I called Emma. She came downstairs. My mother immediately started crying. I should have been there. Emma nodded quietly. I know. My mother wiped her eyes. I'm sorry. The room became silent. Emma looked at her for several seconds, then she said something that stunned all of us. I forgive you. My mother's face collapsed into tears, but Emma wasn't finished. I forgive you because I don't want to carry this anymore. Another pause. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. My mother nodded slowly, painfully. She understood. Some bridges can be repaired, others can only be remembered after she left. Emma sat beside me on the couch. Neither of us spoke for a while, then she leaned against my shoulder. Dad, yeah. Do you think Grandma really meant it? I thought carefully before answering. I think she finally realized what she threw away. Emma nodded, then she smiled. A peaceful smile, the kind that comes when a wound finally stops hurting. Years earlier, I had spent my entire life trying to earn my parents' love, trying to prove my worth, trying to be enough. But watching my daughter stand on that stage taught me something I should have learned long ago. Your value isn't determined by the people who refuse to see it, and sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destroying someone, it's letting the truth speak for itself. My parents chose favoritism. They chose pride. They chose neglect. And eventually those choices cost them the very family they took for granted. As for Emma, she grew up surrounded by people who showed up, people who cared, people who loved her without conditions. And in the end, that mattered far more than any inheritance ever could. Because the text message they sent nearly destroyed a little girl's heart. But the video she left behind exposed the truth they spent years hiding. And that was the day I stopped wishing they had been different. That was the day they stopped having power over us. And for the first time in years, I finally felt free.